Here, the last thing we talked about was the quantity that a Nazir has to eat or drink before they're liable. And we had the Mishnah Rishona, and we had Rabbi Akiva, and one of them said it was the size of a kazayis. Rabbi Akiva says a kazayis, and the Mishnah Rishona said it's a revius, the quantity of wine. So now that we mentioned a revius means a quarter of a loig. Revius means quarter of a loig. It's a measurement. So the loig is a certain measurement, and a quarter of that is what we call a revius. So Amar Rabbi Lazar, Eser revius. In fact, there are 10 different laws where the revius is the quantity. The Nokar of Kahana Sum Kusar, Rab Kahana said to remember it, 5 of them have to do with red, which is wine or blood, and the Chamesh Chivarta, 5 of them have to do with water and white. Chamesh Sumakta, what are the 5 laws to do with red? First of all, and we'll explain each one in detail. Nazir is one. Ois Pesach is another one regarding Korban Pesach. Then there's Shahayru about paskening, and the Migdash in the Migdash, and Umeisai to do with a corpse. Now the Gemara explains each one. Nazir revius yain the Nazir. We just learned that a Nazir, how much wine can't they drink before they're liable? The quantity of a revius. Oisa Pesach. What has not Korban do with Pesach itself? Where's the revius coming to Pesach? The Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, Arba koises alalo, these 4 cups, tzarich sheyehei behen kedei revius. Now these 4 cups need to have a revius. You have to have a revius before you fulfill the mitzvah of drinking 4 cups. Rashi, interesting ones over here, that the total aggregate of the 4 cups is a revius, because a revius in those days of their wine, which was so fortified and so strong, you need to dilute it with water. And if you dilute it with a ratio of 3 to 1, rather you should do 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, so then 1 revius covers all 4 cups, because each cup you put a quarter of that revius and then you add 3 cups of water. So what actually learned the revius is for the full 4 cups, not per cup. The next thing is shahayru, when you make a rule in legislation. We learned it before already, and that is that shasa revius yain, if you drank a revius of wine, ali yoda, you shouldn't paskin at all, because we learned from the Beis Hamikdash, just like it says lahayras Muslims, just like you're not allowed to enter the Beis Hamikdash intoxicated, so too you cannot make any rulings when you're inebriated. We even talked about raw milk. And the Mikdash is that Shas Revius Yain, if you drank a revius of wine, you're inebriated, Benichlas the Mikdash, and you actually enter the Beis Hamikdash, Chayav Misa. Again, we see a revius. Umeisai and his corpse, the Tanya we learned. Menayin lerevius dam. You walk into a room where there's a corpse, then it's called tumas oil, that the tumas spread around because you share a common roof, and you become tummy. If the corpse is not there, but a quantity of the blood of the corpse is there, and what's that minimum quantity? A revius of blood. Rabbi Akiva takes it a step further. He says even 1 revius from 2 corpses, also you're liable. Now that part is irrelevant whether it's 1 corpse or 2 corpses. The idea is that you need a revius of blood before it contaminates you. Sheyetze Mishnei Mason, this is Rabbi Akiva's opinion, that a single revius of blood that emanates from 2 corpses, that exudes tumah inside or spreads tumah in this oil. It says Val Kol Nefasha is mace. It says I'll call nefashos mace lo yavai. Mace is singular, nefashos is plural. So we're saying 2 nefashos, and 1 revius lo yavai. You shouldn't walk it either. Okay. Could be talking about revius of a nazir. So we're giving you all the other rules as the Gemara normally does. We digress. So we're going to tell you where else we find the rule of these. The Chamesh Chivarta, there are 5 cases of white, of transparent, of water, and so on. And we'll explain each one in detail. There is chalas, we're talking about chala in a minute. There is nazir. Again, by nazir, there's also a law which we'll see. Umitzayda, like oil, water, these are called chivarta, white. Mitzayra, by Mitzayra, shenifslu, became puzzle, b'Shabbos on Shabbos. Now, the Gemara explains each one. Chalas, says the Gemara, what's chalas? Revi is shemen lechala. You need a quarter of oil, a quart for challah. Now, there are many. Rashi brings 3 opinions on how to learn Pshat, but the one that takes the Rosh learns. One of them is that you have 3 different. But when you bring a korban toida, a Thanksgiving offering, you bring 40 total of 40 challahs. 30 of them are chametz and 10 of them are 30 of them are matzah and 10 of them are chametz. And the matzah is done 3 different ways: shallow baked, fried, deep fried, baked. There are 3 different kinds of matzahs. 2 of the kinds you have 1 revius of oil, and 1 of the kinds you add a revius of oil. So here we have a revius oil, quantity of 1 revius for matzah of a chalas pega. Okay, then the next one is a nazir. We define by nazir revius shemil nazir. We have a revius of oil by nazir when the nazir brings its chalas with his carbon. Then you have Mitzayra. Where do you find Mitzayra or Revius? Mitzayra what he does is he takes some water and he shechts. He has 2 birds. One bird he shechts, and the blood of that it mixes with the water, and then the live bird you dip it in there before you send it away. How much quantity of water should it be there? A Revius. Revius mayim l'mitzayra. A Revius of water when it comes to a Mitzayra. Then it says shenif the water became possible. All other mashkin joined together to be metame poislin as a kivia. If there's a revius of liquid that is tummy, even though it's a sheni, if a person eats it, then he himself becomes tummy as far as truma is concerned. Because by truma, remember, we're very makpid even to our shlishi. So how much does he have to drink? A revius within the time span of achilas pras. B'Shabbos, where does a revius come into Shabbos? If not, b'Shar kol hamash give a revius. How much quantity we learn in Shabbos that you're not allowed to carry in Shabbos, but there's a minimum quantity before you're liable. And liquids, it's a revius. And yeah. There's b'Shar kol hamash give a revius, b'Shar kol hashev give a revius. And all other things that you learn on Shabbos, anything that you normally pour out in the street, also the quantity there is a revius. Says the Gemara, so you only have 10. More, I'll find you 3 more. First of all, miravius neitul yadayim. That from a revius, how much water should you have in your cart when you wash your hands? It should contain revius. And according to one opinion, even 2 hands, even the second person can continue using that same kvart because it started out of revius, even though by the time the second person comes along, it might be only half revius left, they could wash their hands. Says the Gemara, we don't get involved in arguments. Bit hard to understand the Gemara's answer because everyone agrees you need a revius in that court. The question is it valid for 1 person or 2 people? So just like before, we brought down the blood of a mace, and we had an argument whether 1 mace or 2 mace. But that part doesn't bother us, even though there's an argument there, because it's irrelevant. But the fact is, you need a revius blood in order to spread the tumah oil. Over here also, you need a revius for 1 person or 2 people. You need a revius in the court. But there is a difference. Over there, the fact of the matter is there's a revius right now. Question is whether the origin it come from 1 mace or 2 mace, but everyone agrees you need a revius dam right now in order to spread the tumah. So there's no argument on that point of revius. Here there is an argument whether you need a revius. Do you need also to have like to use a full revius or not? The opinion that says only 1 person can use it says the revius can only be used. You need a full revius, not only in a cup, but to be used. And according to the second person, you don't need to use a full revius. You just need a cup that has a revius. So there's an argument even in the very essence of halach. So maybe that's why we don't talk about it. Okay, I'll bring you another case. What about maybe paili shocheda? They bring an earthenware pot that is pretty, a low-grade pot. It's a pretty cheap pot, and they would place there the sand from the Mishkan, and it says. And they would use it and mix it with water and give it a drink to the Saita. How much maybe they put in the chatzi like mayim in akir. One opinion says they would bring their 2 revius of water from the kiyar. They would mix, the sand base of the mishkan together with the water before they gave it a drink to the Saita. Rabbi Yehuda says revius. One answers again, but like we don't get involved in arguments. And when that's the third question, how much water do you have to put in there? That you have, let's say, a earthenware pot that has in it a urine pot, and you shouldn't make it down in front of it, so you have to dilute it. How much water do you have to place in there to dilute it that's no longer considered a urine? So one opinion says kosher, slightest amount. Like it says a revius. Again, the Gemara says The plukta lekamaidi. We don't want to get involved in arguments. Now, these three questions have exact same answer. So maybe they weren't all said at the same time in the base of Medish.
All the 10 we both don't have books like this.
No, that's the point. Even though by dam we had a machlek, yeah. Maybe because the halacha is like Rab Zakkai that it's a revius by Ovid, so you thought that maybe that's the halacha. You should have included that. So he said, even though that's a halacha, still since there's an argument, we don't get involved. Says the Gemara, what do you call it? What about a mikveh? We know that a regular mikveh, we're not talking about a spring here, a regular mikveh, you can, even though we have 40 saw, that's for a person. But for kalim, if you have, let's say, needles, little tiny utensils, you can use, as long as you have a revius of water, it's enough. The Rabbana came in and they canceled that because next time we had a chagiga, so then you use bigger pots of whatever. But technically, you can use a revius. Why don't you mention that? Says the Gemara, the pluk, he can be that's even though in theory you're right, or revius, but the Rabbana canceled it. Practically, we don't rely on that at all. So therefore, we didn't want to include a revius there. A spring, you don't need a revius. A spring is only even a mashu. There's no law that says how much water has to be, as long as it can cover the needle. It's not even a revius. It's a tiny little fork or something. Says the Gemara, and the Mishnah says, it says, you're not chayiv. The Tana Kama. So there's three Tanas in our first Mishnah. You have the first Tana, you have the Mishnah Rishona, and you have Rabbi Akiva. And there's a big argument to show him how to learn this Gemara here and the gear system of the Gemara. So the Gemara says that Tana Kama, the first Tana. Now, when we say Tana Kama, we're referring to the Mishnah Rishona. We're referring to the very first opening where it says a Kazais. Tana Kama, the Tana Kama, Loi Medame Lahain Kol Isuri Nazal Shtir. The Tana Kama does not compare eating to drinking. So eating, what do you call it? According to Tosfos, the gear is exactly the opposite. The Tana says eating is a kazayis. So the Tana holds that drinking is also a kazayis. So the Tana, yes, medame, take out the word loy, does compare the Isser of eating to drinking, because he holds that both of them are kazayis. In the Mishnah Rishona, it says they have to drink a revius. So the Mishnah Rishona might be saying a kazayis of eating and drinking as a revius, and that's what the Gemara is saying here. The Tana Kama is referring to the Mishnah Rishona, does not compare eating to drinking. Drinking is a revius, doesn't talk about eating, but eating is like it's the standard rule of eating, which is a kazayis. Rabbi Akiva says that everything is a kazayis because he learns from the pasuk, don't dip your bread into wine. So because the Torah compares drinking and eating, and it's a kazayis, so the drinking is also kazayis. Rabbi Akiva, means according to Tosfos, the very first Tana in our Mishnah agrees with Rabbi Akiva that the eating and drinking are both a kazayis. The second part of Akiva about combining the bread, which is legal, which is permitted to be eaten together with wine, that's where the argument is. But the quantity, that's how Tosfos learns. It's the Mishnah Rishona that learns to reveal the kazayis. Says the Gemara further.
We had a discussion about whether the kazayis is actually a revius.
Oh, there's another opinion. I told you that. Yes, there's an opinion, and we have that in Masechta Shabbos in the 8th parak, which says that those who hold that a kazayis and revius is kazayis of solid and revius of wine is actually the same shit. It's not even an argument. Tell you what further. But it says in pasuk, "Va'novim lachim." The Torah spells it out: moist grapes, regular grapes, and raisins. Lo yachli, you should not eat. The Torah shouldn't eat. Why did the Torah spell it out? So the Brisa says, if you ate, let's say, both grapes, it's not one avera, it's two averas. If you're warned not to eat it and you ate grapes and raisins, you'll get twice lashes. From here you learn out that what in all prohibitions of the Torah, which we're talking about, just look here, grapes are grapes. And yet the Henshei Shem is because they have two different names. It's called the raisins, called the grape. The Chayiv Azed B'fnei Atzav, Chayiv each one separately. So too, kosher who mean echad. any other avera, which is one species, but it's two different names. Each one separately. Lasuya, for example, let's say you ate chamra chadati, let's say brand new wine. Anyway, brand new wine means you didn't have a chance to ferment, so it's fresh wine. Less than 3 days. Sometimes we say 40 days, but say less than 3 days. It's mamish, just the juice came out of the grape, and you ate the grapes. It's exactly the same thing. Since they have two different names, this is called wine, grape juice, and this is called grapes. It's two averes. Amr Abaye comes along further and he says, we had more Makas Abaye enjoyed trying to count how many averes, the third parak, how many averes you can do in one go. So Abaye says, Ochal Chartzen, if you ate the Chartzen like a stein. Remember in the argument in the Mishnah what Chartzen is. If Chartzen is the skin, or do we say Chartzen is actually the pip? So we follow as a pip. So we ate, let's say, the pips. You get twice, two averes, just eating pips. We'll see in a minute. Ochal Zog, you ate the skin like a stein. You also committed two averes. Ochal Chartzen Vizog, you ate the pip and the skin. You get three averes. What's the third avera? One for the pip and one for the skin. The third avera is, the Torah says, anything that comes out of a grape, anything that comes out, because you have anything that comes out of the grape, you are liable. So therefore, so that's another lav. Anything that emanates from the grape, separate. Rabbi says no. That's called a lav shebechlo. The lav shebechlo is we have an avera in the Torah that includes more than one sin. Like over here, anything that comes from the grape. But there's so many other. There's the skin, there's the pip, there's the pulp, there's the wine. So that lav, anything that emanates from a grape, is called a lav shebechlo. It's one lav that includes many others. So Rabbi says, like a lav, you only get one. You don't get malchus for the lav shebechlo. Why? Like a lav shebechlo. In Gemara Krisis will have a whole arichas on this concept. So you want to ask a question. Abelazar says, Nazir yayin. If a Nazir continues to drink wine all day, even though he drank many revius, he only committed one avera because you only got one more, and he gets to continue with avera. But Amrullah, they warned him every drink that he took. It's al tishta. Every time they drank, they warned him. And Bushaisi continuously drinks. Chayav each one. Ochal anovim lachim b'yaveshim. You ate grapes that were moist, and you ate raisins. Chartonim v'zogim. You ate pips and skins. V'sochat eshkoshan anovim, and you squeezed out a cluster of grapes. V'shasa leika. Vishasa, and you drank it. So what did you do? You ate grapes, raisins, pips, skins, and grape juice, fresh grape juice. Like a chumash, 5 averas. No, it says clearly 5. According to Abaye, it should be 6 because where's your avera of anything that emanates from a grape? Now, if Abaye is right, you should get 6. The bicycle says 5. Kol asher yasa mehagaf, and it comes out of the grape, so it should be 6. Achas kol asher yasa. We're talking about you were warned, don't eat all of it. You're warned for each one of them. So you get 6 times, you should get 6 times malchus. Here we're giving you 5 times lashes because you committed 5 sins. L'chayda, there should be a 6 lash. We're talking about you ate it all in one go. Otherwise, you should get 10 lashes, 10 times lashes, because for each one of them, you ate it all in one go. So one says, you're right. But ton of a shayah. The Brisa wasn't out to delineate each one. My shayah, hashayah. What other aveda did the Brisa not? There's another aveda that you incurred, and that is shayah lo yachol devaray. When you become a Nazir, you have to make a promise. And when you make a promise, you're a Nazir, you drink wine, you breach your promise. There's another Aveda, another 39 lashes. Says that's not an answer because imishum high lav shiru. That's not an answer. Why it's not considered? It's not considered left out. Why not? Because we're talking about what's unique to Nazir. Lo yachal devara is not a law by Nazir. Therefore, is any promise you make, any vow you make, and if you breach it, and you're warned not to, you will get your lashes. So it's not. So what the Bryce is referring to specifically Nazir. We're talking about things which are not found anywhere else. Lo yachal devara isa ben adorim. Lo yachal devara is found by Nadorim. Omalei Ravina mipazaki Ravashi. Ravina was like Ravashi. I could so Ravina says Ravashi, but there is something left over. What is that? The Bain Habenayim. You be left behind. You just said that lo yachol is not considered shear, and if you said there's no answer for Abaye, it's a good question. Abaye, I have an answer for Abaye because there's another Avera left out. We learned before there's another Avera, and that is Feina Benayim. And we had two opinions what that means. One is that you have these grapes sandwiched between larger grapes that will never grow, and so it's a lower quality grape, and that's also forbidden. Another one is the pulp inside between the pip and the skin. And the way Taisa explains there, it's not the normal way of eating, sitting there with a fork and taking out. You don't want to eat the skin, you don't want to eat the pip, so you just sit there and take down in between. It's like kederech achilasim, so it's a lower level of avera. In fact, without the Torah informing us it's avera, we would have thought it isn't, because we have a concept in Gemara Pesach we had. If you eat something shalei kederech achilasim, not the normal way, you're not liable. So Beina Benayim, let's say the guy also ate Beina Benayim in between, he's also liable. So another avera. The fact that it wasn't counted shows that Abaye is right. It doesn't tell you doesn't count every single Avera. So it doesn't count the Avera Beina Benayim. It doesn't count the Avera of Kolashi Yosef Agefen. Elom Rapapa said, this is an amazing Gemara. Quite incredible. Rapapa says, Loi Tanyin Midi Chamish. I was joking. There's no such brisa that says 5. I made it up. You hear this? So the Gemara said, what do you mean you made it up? Well, you just came along and you asked a question. The Brisa says you get 5 Averis, and now you're telling us it never happened. So therefore, there's no question about you in the first place. My time also. Why'd you make it up? In other words, there was such a Brisa that says if you committed these sins, you get many Averis, a myriad of Averis, but it doesn't say how many. And I pop it through in 5. So the Gemara says, if it doesn't say 5, why did you put it in? Amar Papa said, I'm not sabri. I thought Lav Gemara he be other. I thought that my teacher Abaye made it up that you get Malchus for the pasuk Kolashi Yosef. That he just thought that logically, why should you get an Avera? He believes that Lav Shebachol get a sin. So therefore, I made up this brisa to test him. Because usually we find many times the Gemara, first Lamira says an opinion, and they bring a quarter brisa that contradicts him. Says, "Oh, eat Tanya, then Tanya. If it says, it says. I take back my opinion." So he wanted Abaye to do the same thing. But I'm not sabri. I thought Lav Gemara. I thought he didn't hear it from his rebbes. That it was just an opinion that he had. So I wanted to see how convinced he was of his opinion. But Hadabe, he changed his mind. And I didn't realize the Gemara biyada. He's not going to change his mind. He's going to maintain his opinion, and he'll find answers because he heard it from his teachers. Lahadabe won't change his mind. So I'll tell you the truth. I made it up. I mean, this is like an amazing thing. We find in the Gemara sometimes the teachers would test their students to see. Here we have the students testing the teachers. Unheard of.
His intention wasn't only to test.
Yeah, it was to change his mind. I mean, this is like this is called learning. This is dishonesty in his worst form. Don't know. Say much further. Let's just finish the mission. Said, command. Remember, we said Chatzani means pips and Zogi means skins. Amr said, command met Tagaminen. According to who do we translate that? Met Purtzinin va'adat Surin. That the Targum says that the Chatz is called Purtzinin and the Zog is called Itzurin. That follows Rabbi Yossi because Purtzinin means the inner core, which is the pips, and Itzurin means the outer, and that is the skin. So therefore, we know that the Targum agrees with Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Allah like Rabbi Yossi. Stop thinking tomorrow, Mitzvah. Have a good day.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.